All right, let's start the timer. Today is Friday. Friday, February 6th. We are right around the corner from Valentine's Day. It'll be here. We got Super Bowl this weekend. It's a very exciting time of year. I love February. I know a lot of people are down on it. We are doing a video every day for the month of February, and it's going to be a lot of fun today. I have a very cool thing I want to show you today. I have a little story about it. First, I'll just show it to you, but I'm going to tell you about the autograph that's here in a little bit, and we'll talk about the Carousel of Progress. When people ask me my favorite ride at Disney World, I say the Carousel of Progress. Now, some people would say it's a show, but it is not a show because it moves. You sit and it rotates. Now, originally, I'll tell you the long story in case you're not a super Disney fan. The Carousel of Progress was Walt's own idea from start to finish, and he loved it. He introduced it at the 1964 World's Fair, where it was an immediate smash hit. So this is a show that started in the 1960s, and it shows the American family, how they would progress, and it kind of jumps forward about 10 to 15 years, maybe 20 each segment. And so it started out, when they first started, it was 1960s. So they start out around the turn of the century, and then they're, in about the 20s, the 40s, the 60s, and then they show you, like here's a glimpse of the future, and then they went home. Then they moved it after the 64 World's Fair closed, which, by the way, that is probably the most famous World's Fair. That was not an official World's Fair because the World's Fair committee said they didn't like New York getting a World's Fair that close to another World's Fair that had been in New York. So they said, no, this is unofficial. And it became the most famous one, probably very much so because of the Walt Disney attractions. Now, when people say this is a show and it's not a real carousel, if they won't let me say this is my favorite, my second favorite attraction is It's a Small World, which is the attraction that also opened with the World's Fair, as well as the Ford's Magic Skyway, which became the People Mover, and also elements of that were in the Ellen DeGeneres attraction that used to be at Epcot, which was something pretty wild. I always think about this because people know that I do this show called Drunk on Disney, and so often I had a guy come up one time. He was a stand-up comic, very nice guy, and he came up and he was like, "Hey, I hear you're into Disney. I'm into Disney." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I heard, Drunk on Disney. I think that sounds awesome. I can't wait to check it out." I said, "Cool." And then he said, "I hate Disney adults. I think Disney, you gotta be cool, and I only like Haunted Mansion and Tower of Terror and roller coasters, and I don't like all that stupid stuff with Mickey Mouse." And he was like, what's your favorite ride? And I was like, It's a Small World is we are not compatible, sir. But this one is just so charming. So they opened it at the 64 World's Fair. Fair ends. They then move it over to Disneyland. And it's there. And at Disneyland, it was not a ride. It was a show. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was a show at the World's Fair as well. And the reason was because the audience stayed stationary and the stage would rotate in the middle. But now, when they moved it over to Florida, they changed that so the audience rotates. So that's why I think it's a ride. I just love the show. Now, when I was a kid, I saw it in Walt Disney World in Florida, because after that opened up, 1971, they moved it from California, where it had only been for a few years, out to the East Coast. And I got to see it when there was a different version of the song. The song had initially said, "There's a great big beautiful tomorrow," which is the current song. But for about a decade or so, they had a different song because General Electric was sponsoring it, and one of the executives wrote it, and they said, "I don't know that we should be saying that there's a great big beautiful tomorrow. We want them to buy a washing machine and an iron and a vacuum cleaner. We want them to buy the General Electric products right now. So we want to tell them now is the time. Now is the best time. And so they put a different version of the song. Now is the best time of your life. Life is a joy. Live every moment. And I loved that version. And then they brought back the original song, and I didn't know it was the original song. I thought it was a new song because, that's where, my perspective. And it took me a while, but now I love the new song. So I love both versions of the song. Now, I'll tell you about this poster. So a number of years ago, because I do Drunk on Disney, I do it with Dana Snyder, who is on Patreon. So you hear his name at the end of all the videos. He is my dear friend, my best friend. He is the voice of Master Shake on Aqua Teen Hunger Force. He is a bigger Disney fan than anyone I know. And he knows BJ Ward, and that's who signed this. Two guy, BJ Ward. And BJ Ward is best known as the original Velma on Scooby-Doo. And she's done other work, very talented, and one of the, I don't know, you'd say Mount Rushmore of voice actors, but she's definitely like royalty when it comes to voice actors and actresses. And so we went to breakfast with her one morning, and I was like, she's such a sweet lady. This is so nice. And I'm listening to her voice, and I hear the Scooby-Doo voice, but I heard something else, and I couldn't place what it was. And so as soon as she left to go catch her flight, I look it up and I go, Dana, she's in the Carousel of Progress. She did the voice in the Carousel of Progress. And we were both like, oh my God, you're right. She does do the voice in the Carousel of Progress. Now, I ate breakfast with her that one time. I have never done another show with her. That was it. That was my one meeting, was sitting at a table with her, chit-chatting with her, but no autograph, nothing like that. So over, and I know if I say this hurts the video. So over the events that happened in 2020, we were all in our houses, and GalaxyCon, who I do conventions for, and the wonderful man, Mike, who runs everything, reached out to me and he said, hey, we have some really big names that are going to be doing these virtual signings. Are there any that you would like autographs from? And he told me some huge names. Not going to tell you any of them, but I said, no, I said, honestly, I don't need any more autographs. I said, but there is one person. If you have BJ Ward, you tell her I said hi, and I do want her autograph if it's possible. And he said, we do have BJ Ward coming up. So he got me this, and she signed it for me. And so I have a signed Carousel of Progress. And it is also a memento of getting to meet her. And she could not have been a nicer person. So, and just a memory of my favorite attraction. And what a cool looking poster. I do love Disney posters. Over here, I have the Disney House of the Future poster. It's right over there. And I do love those. Maybe I will hang this somewhere here. So this was hanging upstairs, but I moved it, brought it down here just to show you guys. So we talked about the original version and the other song, the changes to the song, but they've had to have other changes because as time has marched on, the last scene became outdated. Now, I don't know that you can have an attraction called Carousel of Progress and have an outdated last scene. I think that's a problem. Although part of me wants them to present the attraction as it was presented in 1964, because the problem is, as I was saying, you're going like 15, 20 years each time, right? Each time it rotates, we see the family in a different time period. But the problem is we're now so far removed from the next to last scene and the last scene. There's just too big of a gap. And now, even in that one, they talk about laser discs and fax machines. And they're gonna, if they update it, they'll probably update it and it'll be a longer gap. And so I do think that kind of is a problem. Maybe the Carousel of Progress has run its course. I hope it is there forever, just because that's what I like. I like to go to theme parks to go on things that I've been on before and see things like this that I have loved. But I'm so glad I've seen it so many times, and I can't get enough of it. Every Christmas, I pull it up and I watch the Christmas sequence because it feels so perfect. Every sequence has a different holiday. So anyway, go watch the Carousel of Progress. We are out of time. I will see you tomorrow.